Doing the Kolomona Slacky. 1, 2, 3, yeah. Yeah. You right.
Got away with it.
Thanks. Doing the Kolomona.
Hukavai mapuna kapu kaha ola ha'akapu ha'anoa e na kupu o na kupuna e malama kamapuna malama kamapuna
Aloha. O wau o Marion Ano, noho mai ma nu'uanu o ua koko ku'u'ua o ko'olau ku'u mauna. Aloha. Ho'i ka o'opu ai lehua i ka māpunapuna. The lehua eating goby returns to spring. Welcome and aloha everyone. The Mapuna Lab is a place of respite for those experiencing colonial trauma. Our work is na'au centered and focused on health and healing, guided by Ohia Lehua as our teacher, an endemic Hawaiian tree. We work in reciprocity and partnership in healing the chronic and existential pain of historical and intergenerational trauma with our Pacific Islander brothers and sisters.
Okay, and for our learning objectives today, participants will engage in an immersive learning experience and identify how empowering patients and practitioners through AI fits into SAMHSA's working definition of recovery. We will also learn how we can empower ourselves as patients or practitioners and understand how to utilize the Ahupuaʻa model to engage AI as a tool to empower ourselves as patients and or practitioners. So this is our quick agenda for the day. Opening protocol, we're going to go into consent to deepen. We're going to have Lilinoe come in to explain the Ahupuaʻa model, go over the SAMHSA recovery model and 12 core functions, talk about tools for empowerment, do some quick demos, break, and then welcome our guest speaker, Marion Ano, and then closing protocol.
Mahalo Kea. At this moment, we want to just ask for a consent to deepen from all the participants that are on the call right now. So I'll give us a short moment to decide whether we'd like to stay at this time. Okay, thank you, mahalo nui. At this time, please join me in welcoming Lilinoe Kauahikaua to speak about Papa'olo Lokahi and the AANHPI Ohana Center of Excellence and the impacts of colonization on Ahupua. Conceptualization version 3. This framework that recently launched with the Hawaii State Plan for the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Division of the Department of Health. Aloha e Lilinoe.
Aloha nui. Ahahea keia nola e na ohana. Ua mai ole o ka ina mali e. Ahena ni vale no I ka makaloa. Ea kahile oe. E pane mai ho'ina. Aloha e, aloha e. Aloha, Aloha nui. Mahalo. Oh, next slide, please. Aloha nui kākou. My name is Lilinoe Kauahikaua. I am from Hilo on Hawaii Island. I bring into the space with me this morning Mauna Wakea as my mountain source and the Wailuku River as my water source. I am very honored to be here today representing Papua and one of our projects called the Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Ohana Center of Excellence for Behavioral Health. A little bit about the Ohana Center of Excellence, where our organizations are really honored to be partnering with Mapuna Lab to help uplift the amazing work that this lab does for all of us in this field. And the Ohana Center of Excellence, and I'll put the link in the chat here for you folks. So a little bit about, we are an online center. We provide a source of empowerment, education, and outreach for Asian American, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islander. We provide technical assistance, in-language workshops and webinars, and an online repository of searchable, culturally appropriate tools and resources throughout the nation for Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander populations. And then actually you can go back one slide. I think we're missing the Ohana Center of Excellence slide. And then for my organization that I work with, Papua, I serve as a program coordinator for substance use and mental health projects, which is why I'm also the project manager for the Ohana Center of Excellence. And then Papua is the Native Hawaiian Health Board. If anyone is not familiar, we were born out of the Native Hawaiian Healthcare Improvement Act in the 80s. And our mandate is to raise the health status of Native Hawaiians to the highest possible level. And next slide. We oversee the 5 Native Hawaiian healthcare systems on each island, and we house the Native Hawaiian Health Scholarship Program. And then we also house the Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander 3R COVID response team. Next slide. So before I get into the Ahupuaʻa model, which some of you may have heard before if you joined us for our other sessions, but I'd like to introduce a Hawaiian worldview, just so we can kind of get ourselves in the frame to understand the importance of Ahupuaʻa and the importance of Aina and land to our populations. So from a Hawaiian worldview, optimal health. In order to achieve optimal health, we needed a balance between our kanaka, our people, the land, and our spirituality. These were the 3 main components of a healthy life for Kanaka Maoli or Native Hawaiians in ancient times. And the health really resided in the balance between the reciprocal relationship with those 3 points. You'll see those 3 points on the triangle here on the screen. That is what kept us healthy. So throughout as Western influence and colonization came into the picture, it started to create this imbalance in this triangle, right? It started to sever some of those connections with land, sever some of those connections with spirituality and traditional practices, and created this imbalance in our family systems, in our ways of life. They add to that the historical and intergenerational traumas that began to be passed down, which created higher health disparities for Kanaka Maoli Native Hawaiians. Next slide, please. And so the way that we started to see this imbalance show up in our populations is higher representation in social services, which includes, here on the screen, you'll see overrepresentation in substance use treatment and in treatment for mental health disorders. We also see higher rates of incarceration. Next slide. So the data only really gives us half of that story though, right? Or the data points out what's wrong within our populations. So we like to really center ourselves in and ground ourselves in ike kupuna, or the knowledge of our ancestors when we do this work. And it's really important, again, to recognize optimal health was a balance between the relationships between people, spirituality, and land. So with that imbalance, that's something that we need to correct in order to achieve, again, optimal health. So one of the roadmaps that we used for this came from a partnership called Imi Keola Mau, which was a partnership of Native Hawaiian kupuna and organizations who really paved the way for this work and highlighted the importance of the connections to land and to spirituality. Kanaka viewed land as a part of our family. If we look back at our genealogical stories, that tells us that we are all connected. We are all part of one Ohana. Everything on this earth, including the land, is all part of one Ohana. And so I'm just going to read a couple of quotes from this, but in order for Native Hawaiians to heal and recover from substance use and mental health issues, we need a sense of place which provides anchors for our values and balance in our lives. We need immediate access to and availability of safe, healthy environment, which includes all of the elements such as salt water, kai, vai, fresh water, air, and all of the animate and inanimate aspects of nature which make up this physical environment. The motivation comes from caring for our sources, the aina, and the reward is our own wellness, which we then perpetuate in all of our relationships through caring to the land. We need the resiliency and protection that our culture provides in order to prevent relapse and redefine ourselves away from pathological diagnosis. We need a sense of self retrieved from past through our ancestors, present through purpose, and future through our descendants. We need our language, traditions, and ceremonies which provide ways to reconnect to our spirituality and to our concept of the source. We need our land and our natural resources, our language, our aumakua, our deified ancestors, our kupuna, our elders, our ohana, our families, and our roles as makua, parents, kamali'i, children, and kanaka people. We need not become Western to heal. Next slide. So we use this framing to share our Aina-based model of the Ahupuaʻa, which is the land division that runs from the mountain to the sea. These were a way of sustainability of resource management in ancient times. However, they're still very much alive and in use today. And so this model is influenced by the White Bison's healing forest model, as well as Dr. Keawe Koholopula's social and cultural determinants of health model, which you'll see featured on the bottom right of that page. And our artist was Kimo Apaka, who is a Native Hawaiian artist from Hawaii Island. And so the Ahupuaʻa model provides this metaphorical and living model to view the ongoing impacts of colonization, historical trauma, and other risk factors on Native peoples, as well as protective and resiliency factors. And it provides this resonant model of a Native system that's grounded in what we understand of that reciprocal relationship that Kanaka have to Aina and spirituality in order to achieve our collective healing, or our mauliola. So the Ahupuaʻa is a living and breathing example of a thriving, healthy Native system. And it's all connected through wai, or water, which flows through every interconnected system. And so if the water is not healthy, and we can kind of view this health as being like pollutants on an environment, right? So if the water is not healthy and it's contaminated, then we are all not healthy, because that water is flowing through all of those interconnected systems of the Ahupuaʻa, and everything then becomes unbalanced. You can kind of see there in the picture, the water runs down from the mountains into our lo'i, our wetland terrace for growing taro, into our mala, our gardens, into our water sources, into our lokui'a, our fish ponds, down into the ocean. It's evaporated up and then gets rained back down. That's the water cycle. So you'll see the social and cultural determinants of health here symbolically shown in the rain, because to show that cycle, the water cycle that goes continuously through this. So as you see on the left side, we have our risk factors depicted. On the right side, we have our protective factors. So this shows that intergenerational transmission, right? It's running through our systems. And while the intergenerational transmission of traumas will start there on the left side, as that starts to come down, it starts to filter into the soil, right? It starts to penetrate into our soil, into our water systems. And it starts to create these layers of eha, right? As we see this passed down, or even our lifetime traumas too, you know, it starts to create this eha, this pain, these layers of anger and fear and guilt and shame within our soil. That soil is then washed down into all of our different systems. So as you can see on the left side, we have our kalo, and we can see kalo as a reflection of ourselves. Kalo that begins to then be born, or puka, out of that unhealthy soil. So it starts to carry that eha with it, right? So that's the idea that we have these intergenerational traumas that are kept with us and that we carry. And sometimes we're born with them down deep and we don't even realize that they're there. And when it starts to bubble up to the surface, you start to see it manifesting in some of these issues that we see today, like substance use and mental health. Those are the surface system, with the root being a much deeper trauma. So the idea is, you know, many of our risk factors, as they are transmitted intergenerationally, so are our protective and resiliency factors. The things that keep us anchored and healthy and thriving, like our culture, our language, our genealogy, our traditional practices. Those things are passed down generationally as well. You can see them depicted on the right side. And as they filter through our system in the same way, they create more balanced soil, right? You see on the right-hand side with lokahi, balance, and mana, rich with spiritual energy, it's vai, and pilina, our connections to one another. Those are the things that keep us healthy and thriving. But you'll see that when our risk factors are going through, oftentimes that eha becomes the loudest thing, and that is what is penetrating us, right? And that is what is taking over oftentimes. So the idea is that this system is here to support our cultural lifeways, as it's always done since, you know, for generations. This system has supported our cultural lifeways. We've lived in harmony with the system. And today's system, or system of care, is not necessarily conducive or able to support cultural lifeways or cultural interventions that we see today. So we presented this model as a way to kind of reframe what it looks like to support Native Hawaiians in healing from some of these impacts of colonization that have trickled down today. So as we start to see our cultural lifeways depicted in here, it starts to clean that water and clean it of those risk factors to allow more space for our protective and our resiliency factors for our culture to really thrive. And so I won't go into too much more detail because I want to give the time over to Marion and the team for this incredible webinar, but I'll post some chat or some links in the chat to our article and the ADAD state plan, which is where we first introduced this. So if folks can read a little bit more, and please feel free to reach out to me if you would like any more information on this. Mahalo.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lilinoe. We really appreciate you being here and representing Papa'ololokahi and the AANHPI Ohana Center of Excellence. So yes, next slide, please. As everyone knows, this is the model that Lilinoe just presented. Thank you so much for your very thorough explanation of it. It really helps us get a sense of what we're doing here. And so just for everyone to consider as we go throughout this presentation, what is your ahu and what is your pua'a? And so yeah, next please. So these are the other two frameworks that are kind of taking a back seat to the Ahupua'a model, but are still important. SAMHSA's working definition of recovery and the 12 core functions of a substance abuse counselor. And so the working definition of recovery has a list of terms that they define, And the 12 core functions of a substance abuse counselor has another list of terms that they define. And essentially, each is integral in the substance use care process. And so for each model, we are going to connect what we say very shortly coming up in the training with one of the parts of the framework. And so in the Samson's working definition of recovery, we're going to connect it to purpose-driven, and in the CSAC, we will be connecting it to client education in a way. So you'll get ready to see that in our demos in just a second. Next slide.
Mahalo, Jack, for introducing us to the frameworks again. So empowering AI. Before I go into that, just allow me to introduce myself. So aloha mai kākou, my name is Marion. And I'm bringing today, I come with my ancestors from Hawaii, Japan, Portugal, and China. So before we make our way right into the demo and our guest presentation, I thought it would be good for us to pause here and think about, what we mean by empowerment through AI. So next slide. And trust me, this was a very difficult question to even begin to answer. But this, a document was shared by my brother, the Indigenous Protocol and Artificial Intelligence Working Group position paper. And I kind of, started reading it, and this quote that of course represents many minds that were part of this working group, but it just really, there was an answer that I found in this quote. So still, most culturally critical approaches to AI call for prioritizing the flourishing of humans over all else. And it's like, wow, that to me, that's just a really powerful statement. And it resonates deeply because it shows that the indigenous approach to utilizing and developing AI holds flourishing humans at the highest marker in developing this technology in perpetuity. And this matters because history demonstrates that indigenous peoples and voices around the world have been purposefully dislodged, right, from the development of advanced technologies and have had little influence over its development. And so in this ever-changing landscape, this baseline marker, this answer there's other answers, of course, but that could help us in our communities really understand and frame our understanding of empowering AI. So at this time, I'm gonna welcome Jack and Kayla from our team to show some immediate ways to engage with AI, artificial intelligence, that can empower our patients and our practitioners. So.
Wonderful. Next slide, please. Okay. Could you go one back real quick? Awesome. Okay. So hello, everyone. My name is Jack Driggers. I am a haole. I am white of the Wonder Bread variety. And I don't really have that much connection to my ancestors. I am partially Italian, and my connection to that culture is cooking lots. It's very fun. But yeah, so I am going to do, Kayla and I are going to go into demos about ChatGPT. And so ChatGPT is an artificial intelligence and basically a language model. We'll get into how it works a little bit more later. And so if I could screen share, that would be awesome. Thank you, Kayla. Okay, so these are our questions. So imagine the scenario that you're having mental health troubles and you want to talk to a professional, but navigating insurance is difficult and you have no idea how to find a therapist covered by insurance, or if your insurance will even pay for it. And this might seem like a scenario that applies more to younger people who aren't as familiar with the healthcare system, but it is possible that older people who are maybe getting healthcare for the first time aren't super, or insurance rather, for the first time aren't super familiar with it. I know that when I started navigating insurance, it was a complete whirlwind and I had no idea where to start. And so having something like ChatGPT to help orient us, not as an answer to all of our problems, but as a way to start giving us guidelines of where to look, can be a really, really helpful way to help educate us as clients and empower us as patients to know what we're supposed to do. So how do I check if my insurance covers mental health services like therapy and or medication? So ChatGPT has a list of instructions, things to do, things to think about as you go through that process. Reviewing your insurance policy by either calling them or looking online, calling them, just contacting them in general, asking specific questions with a representative is always a great way to do it. And then, oh, this is kind of even getting into our second question already. Check for network providers, verify coverage for specific medications. And essentially, when you're kind of overwhelmed and don't know where to start, ChatGPT is a great way to sort of orient yourself and figure out, okay, if this is where I want to end up, how do I get there? I have no idea. Maybe something can give me a step list. And that ties back into recovery being person-driven. It's about self-determination and self-direction. And sometimes it's really hard to know where you want to go if you don't know where you can go. And so AI, not specifically ChatGPT, but AI in general, could be trained to help provide people with information that can help them answer that question. And so the second question in this example is, how can I find a therapist that is covered by my insurance policy? Because therapy, especially if you're going weekly, can be incredibly expensive. And so you'll want to get one that's in network so you don't have to pay as much. So again, ChatGPT gives you a list of instructions, steps to hit, things to do to help you figure out what applies in your specific situation. And so check the insurance provider's website, use the company provider's directory. That's something that I didn't know was a thing that existed until my mom told me, basically. And so it's really helpful because a lot of people, they may not have someone in their life who has that knowledge to share. And if they don't, ChatGPT or some other artificial intelligence that's programmed with information such as this would be there to provide it for them, which is a really wonderful thing and sort of ties back into client education. Not specifically in the sense that a substance use provider, a substance abuse counselor would be replaced by an AI, but in the sense that if there's a database that can answer questions when a patient isn't with a practitioner or provider, then they might have questions that they need to answer quickly, and an artificial intelligence could potentially do that. And so that is it from me. Kayla, back to you.
Okay, can you see this? Okay. Aloha everyone, my name is Kayla. I'm a research assistant at the Mapuna Lab and a public health student at UH Manoa. I'm zooming in from Ohui Manu, where I grew up and still live. And a quick preface, I am not Native Hawaiian. I am a Gose, or fifth generation Japanese person living in Hawaii on my dad's side. And on my mom's side, I'm a second generation Laotian person living here. So I'm not Hawaiian, but I do bring my ancestors and their respective cultures here to talk about practitioner empowerment with AI. Okay, so in our first webinar, we talked about ethical codes to have in place for the development of AI in substance use care. So Pilina, data sovereignty, and self-determination. Yeah, and then, so that's for the development part. But in practice and when working with individual patients, the one to really center is Pilina. And we know, I think we know this, but to be authentic and to build trust and to build just strong relationships. So that brings us into this demo and helping individuals of cultural backgrounds we may know almost nothing of. In those scenarios, helping people and building relationships might be a little harder to foster. And that's where AI can be used as a tool of empowerment. So in starting a relationship and having some baseline guidance for culturally sensitive care. So the scenario I chose here was creating a treatment plan for a patient of a Laotian background. And that's because I have family members who struggle with it. Substance use, and substance use issues are pretty prominent in the Lao diaspora to begin with. Yeah, and then we can switch over to ChatGPT. And the first question I'm gonna ask is, what questions can a substance use counselor ask ChatGPT for culturally sensitive care? So this is very general, very baseline too, but we can see it automatically, it comes with a list of things that we could consider. So cultural factors, acknowledging and respecting the client's cultural identity, and providing information about traditional healing practices. All of this stuff is super valuable. The second question we could ask is, are there any traditional healing practices or alternative therapies for Lao patients that they may find helpful or incorporate into the treatment plan? And this is super interesting because we can get very specific with ChatGPT. So we see it does provide a disclaimer, but it does list some general things to consider. So traditional medicine, spiritual healing, family involvement, mind-body practices, community support, all of it's super, super valuable. And just important to keep in mind if we're, I guess, meeting with people that we know nothing of their cultural background. And I think it's very important to note here that nothing should be assumed. AI cannot and should not replace the humanistic relationship, but it can help us to be conscious of any prejudices we may have. So, for example, thinking Western ways are the only way or like the standard, and it can help us tailor treatment to the individual. So doing this maintains factors like Ohana relationships, traditional healing, community connection, all protective and resilience factors, a part of the Ahupuaʻa model. Yeah, but that's the end of my very quick demo. And I can pass it to Marion to screen share for the break.
Yes, mahalo, Jack and Kayla, for those wonderful demos. Let me share my screen here. Okay. There we go. Oh. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, everyone. So we are going to be taking a break really quickly. But before we go into the word search, we do have another survey that we would love it if you guys could fill out. This is the post survey and we're not done quite yet. So if you want to wait until the end, feel free to do so, but we will have it in the chat right now. Thank you so much, Viana. Basically, this is so important that you guys fill this out and later as well if you don't want to do it right now. It impacts basically, it's how we show involvement to the people who give us funding. And it is really important to show that people care about the work that we're doing here and that people want to see more. And so if you guys all would be able to fill that out at some point, it doesn't have to be now, it could also be at the very end, that would be incredible. So yeah, back to the word search at the top of your screen. Oh, I see, Carmel, you already got it. You know what's up. Okay, at the top of the screen, you should see a green bar that says you are viewing Marion Ano's screen. Next to it is a gray bar. Click on that. It says view options. There'll be a drop-down menu. And almost at the very bottom, right below exit full screen and right above side-by-side mode, you should see a button that says annotate. If you click on that, you'll be able to draw on the screen and do the word search. So please feel free, enjoy the break. Marion, would you be able to share your screen again and this time press the share computer sound button? Thank you. Give us just a second, everyone. It'll be back in 1 second. And also, we're going to be sending out these slides later. So if you want to save the word search, print it out, give it to your kids, whatever you want to do with it. Don't worry, there will be plenty of time to do it.
Jack, I might be having some technical issues. I'm wondering if you could share your screen.
Yeah, sure, sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Give me a second to pull that up.
Thank you everyone for your patience.
All right, that is it for our break. Sorry, it was a little short, technical difficulties, but that, oh, hello. That just means that if you guys want to do the word search later, we have more words for you guys to find. So I'm going to clear the screen and then pass it on over to Marion to screen share.
Thank you, Jack. Okay, the moment we've been waiting for. So I just wanted to introduce our guest, Marion Ano. He is a native Hawaiian IT systems engineer and software developer with 4 decades of experience in the tech industry and an education background in psychology, cognition, and neuroscience. He is a Microsoft alum and currently contracts with the Surface division. For the past 4 years, he has been working with neural network models and machine learning applications in text-to-speech and large language models. Please join me in welcoming my brother, John, to speak more on these evolving technologies, issues, immediate applications, and future implications of AI as it relates to patient and practitioner empowerment. Aloha and welcome, John.
Aloha and mahalo. I'm going to share my screen now. Let me know when you can see it.
Looking good?
Good to go? Excellent. Well, once again, aloha everyone, and mahalo so much for this opportunity to participate in today's webinar. I'm super excited to be here, and I hope that the information I share with you can be of value to you in the things that matter most to you. So before we get started, I want to set expectations about where I'm coming from. And hang on while I deal with my screen is acting strange. Of course, perfect timing. There we go. So I really want to help set some expectations and show how I hope to align what I'm talking about with everything else and all of the great content that the Mapuna Lab and Lilinoe have shared with you up to this point. The information that I'm sharing today is about AI from my personal perspective as an engineer and a science-oriented technology professional. It's important for me to tell you all that I am not speaking as a representative of any employer or organization. This is coming from the heart. So thank you, Marion, for that great introduction. And I bring with me my culture and ancestors. Marion and I are brother and sister, but half siblings. And so where Marion brings her Japanese culture and heritage and ancestry, I bring the Filipino. So there you have it. Again, born and raised in Honolulu, Punahou grad 83. Fun fact, I got my first freelance programming gig. Yes, I got paid to write programming in high school, 1981, 82, at the tender age of 16. I wrote an inventory management system for a Middle Eastern import-export company in Kaka'ako. Wrote the whole thing in BASIC, for those of you who remember that ancient language, on, again, you have to be of a certain generation here, a Radio Shack TRS-80 Model 3, big floppy disk, old school, baby. Got my bachelor's of science in psychology at Oregon State. And after finishing my degree at OSU, I actually got accepted to the PhD program in cognitive psychology at the University of Washington here in Seattle, where I live. Part of my first year project involved writing a program to test human reaction time, memory, and attention for a US Air Force research grant. And in the process of writing that program, which was for Windows version 2, folks, version 2, right? 1988 technology, just so you know. But that project reignited my passion for software engineering, and conversely, gave me the ticket to leave grad school and never look back. This was at the time that the .com era was taking off. And so I rode that wave for 4 decades. So since then, I've worked at a number of high-tech companies in the Seattle area, including Microsoft, which is where I work today as a contract IT systems engineer. But it wasn't until 2019 that I really rolled up my sleeves with AI and machine learning. But the principles of both artificial and human intelligence has been a passion of mine for decades. So here we are. Let's get into it. Over the past 6 to 8 months, AI has really taken the world by storm. And even though we've all seen it coming for decades, at least some of us have, now that it's here and real, it's still shocking how much AI is changing the way people live and work. And I believe that that rate of change is going to continue to increase into the future, well into the future. So one of my goals today is to arm you with facts and information that I hope helps reduce some of the anxiety and distrust about this disruptive AI technology, because used properly, it can empower you to do amazing things. It will, I hope, ultimately amplify the things that you can do with it. Now, a critical first step for anyone interested in using AI is to understand and manage the risks related to your personal privacy and your personal data, especially with healthcare and where healthcare issues are concerned. So I'm going to cover that in detail in the last portion of this talk. Okay, so in my presentation, we're going to pop the hood on AI and take a look at not only how it works, but why it works. We'll cover how you can use AI tools, and we saw some great demos from both Jack and Kayla on how you can use ChatGPT and other tools like it for those things that matter to you. And as I said earlier, it's extremely important for you to be aware of how your personal data can be used by these tools and the companies that make them. We'll talk about ways for you to have better control over that privacy and data. And finally, we'll take a look at possible future opportunities to make positive impact in Asian American, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander health and wellness. So let's get into it. How does AI work? The stunning capabilities of AI technologies like ChatGPT and other systems like it owe their success truly to your brain. They mimic the way your brain cells, also called nerve cells or neurons, the way they learn and encode information. Using that biological blueprint, psychologists, neurologists, and computer scientists developed math models implemented as computer code that run on our most powerful computer servers to give you what you see today as ChatGPT, Bard, Claude AI, Bing. And as amazing as that AI is today, none of it would exist without the blueprint that is up here. So no AI without brain, folks. Now let's talk about how we get from brain cells to AI. I gave you just the quick skim before, but those models are built on matrix algebra and calculus. As a side note, I still break out in highs when I think about my college days of calculus. It's like, but once you know, my career path requires it, so yay. Both artificial neurons and biological neurons work the same way because they both learn through adapting the connections between neurons over time, biologically, artificially. The changes in those neural connections is how we and AI learn. Now, I'm just going to take a little more of a dive into the biology of things just to make sure that people are exposed to exactly what scientists have used to model these, or to create these mathematical models. What you're looking at here is neurons that are in our frontal cerebral cortex. This is in the front part of the brain, just above our eyeballs. It's the place where we do most of our complex, abstract thinking. Like right now, it's nearly 4 o'clock here, and I'm thinking, what am I going to have for dinner? So I'm projecting into the future, and my frontal lobe is firing, going, pizza sounds good, but you know, here we are. But the reason I bring this up is, take a look at that picture on the right. You'll see that the neurons, they're different kinds of neurons. They're not all the same, and they're in layers, and they have these connections between them. And as I said earlier, the connections between those neurons is where information is encoded. And it's encoded in a way that you can't just look at a connection and go, oh, that's where John was talking about pizza. No, it's at such a minuscule level that it's almost impossible to decipher what connections are referring to what information. And this is the mystery and magic of the brain, because of the scale and size of the amount of neurons we have. And I'll show you a chart later that digs into that. Okay. Fun fact about, since we're talking about large language models and AI, in the human brain, we have the Broca's area, the Wernicke's area. These are the language centers of our brain for processing grammar, speech, handling, and interpretation of meaning. And it's about the size of a chicken McNugget. There you have food. Fun fact, Broca's area, the part that is dealing with processing grammar and speech production, is 20% larger in female brains. So you people of the male gender out there, if you've been told, use your words like I have when I was a child, now you know why. Okay, so now we're going to switch gears really quickly from biology to math models. If you walk out of this talk remembering just a few things, one is the 6 words you see at the top of this slide. Neurons that fire together, wire together. And the whole idea of that is that brains, as they learn, neurons as they learn, whether they're biological or artificial, learn by adjusting the connections between them, strengthening them as they're exposed to repeated inputs. I'm not going to go into the details of Donald Hebb, but our boy here, Canadian psychologist in 1949, Donald Hebb, came up with this theory of learning. And he did this with having no insight into the brain because he didn't have the technology to see at the level we can with computer imaging and all of the high tech that we have to actually see at the neuron level. Back then, he had to study rats in mazes and how people process information by looking at their behaviors. So this guy went old school and figured it out. And his postulate here is one of the big underpinnings of artificial intelligence. What you see on the left here is a John Ano original picture of 3 biological neurons that are transmitting signals. The red arrows are the directions the signals travel, and the green circles show where the connections between neurons are. As you learn things, anything, the strength and density of those neural connections grow. The picture on the right, also drawn by yours truly, is a representation of artificial neurons involved in learning something new. Again, the red arrow indicates the direction of signal flow from left to right. And the green numbers represent the strength of those connections. So instead of neurotransmitters, neurochemicals causing physical connections between things, we use math numbers to represent the strength of the connections between neurons. And as you learn information, as these neurons learn information, those connection values grow. The bigger the number, the stronger the connection. So I'm going to blow through this slide real quick. Calm yourselves, relax. There's not going to be a test later. But here's the matrix algebra and calculus that goes into translating how neurons work in your brain for learning and memory, and how scientists have turned those behaviors, modeled them into mathematical equations that we can then encode as computer programming language to run on computers. And here's an example of one part of those, one set of equations, which is how you encode information and how these artificial networks encode information and save them. And this is Python code that is the equivalent of what that formula is. Okay, everybody relax. If your eyes have rolled up in your head and you've passed out from a lack of oxygen, please dial 911. If not, the hard part is over. So this is a picture of NVIDIA's most powerful H100 GPU chip. It was introduced in October of 2022. And the price of this GPU chip, which is the thing that does that massive parallel processing calculation that AIs need, $40,000 a pop. Now, ChatGPT 4 is rumored because the company's proprietary, they don't share the information, to run on a cluster of 128 of these H100s, 8 to a server, and about $400,000 a pop. So that's the estimate. And on the right is illustration of what those data centers could look like. Again, we don't know because it's a closed system. So let's really quickly do a quick comparison here. The specs of GPT-3, we're looking at the total neurons of 7.5 million neurons That's the predecessor to ChatGPT 4, which has 85 million. Now, humans, we're knocking out of the park at 86 billion. So there's no comparison, okay? So don't be afraid about AI taking over the world because they're not even close. They do amazing things though, and this is why I wholly endorse using them as tools to help us do what we do better. The part of our brain that does cognitive processing is about 20 billion neurons. The total number of connections that we use for language processing. And again, the connections are the important part. That's where we process all of the things that we do. That's where we encode information. That's how we recognize information. We have 100 trillion to a quadrillion of those connections compared to a paltry 1 or 2 trillion. GPT-3 is 175 billion. It's not even in the ballpark. And still it does amazing things. So what you should walk away from this is these systems use the same architecture. They use the same type of learning processes and adaptive processes to learn what they learn and do what they do, but they're nowhere close to what the brain can do. Okay, so quick summary, it's biological in nature. AIs use our biological nature to enable learning and memory in these artificial systems. They encode everything in the connections between neurons. They're mathematically based, implemented as code. Specialized hardware, GPUs, also known as video cards, are needed to meet the massive computational needs. Yet our brains are still way bigger, more complex and smarter. Okay, part 2. Use AI like a pro. So the art of the prompt. And again, thank you for Jack and Kayla for doing such a great job of showing off some of those examples. Prompts, you just write them in English. You can use them on any of the chat AIs that I've listed here, and there are others as well. And Jack made a great point earlier, English majors, your time has come because English language is the tool of choice now. We're no longer programmers, we're English programmers. We can do amazing things by using the right words in our prompts. And I encourage people to get in there and use it and practice and refine your techniques. You'll find that you can get amazing amounts of information from AI if you ask the right question. So real quickly, effective prompting techniques. Make chatbots explain and summarize complicated new topics. These are some of the examples here. Ask for details. Tell me as much as you know about whatever topic. Ask for key points. What are the most important things I should know about a topic? Examples. Always, always ask for examples. It helps with your comprehension of whatever it is you're trying to learn. Ask for comparisons. These AI systems, if they have the knowledge, they're great at very effectively summarizing the differences and the similarities between whatever subject you're investigating. Also, chain your questions. AI chatbots have a limited memory in the recent Q&A of your conversations, so they can recall things that they said earlier to stay in context, which makes it easier for you to maintain a flow and follow on questions. Start general and drill into specifics. And over long conversations, one of the problems with AI is not so much a problem, but keep in mind that they can forget your earliest questions. So you might think that you can scroll up and see your first question in the conversation. AI might have forgotten it if it was far enough away. Important for you to scrutinize everything. All chatbots are trained on an immense amount of information, wealth of knowledge from the internet, scholarly articles, books, and so on, but there are problems you need to be aware of when using AI. AI contains knowledge of both the best and the worst of what exists out on the internet. Even with the best of intentions, the scientists and engineers have an extremely difficult challenge to filter the data to maximize user safety while minimizing bias. And that's an incredibly hard job that we still continue to struggle with today, and we will continue to struggle with into the future. No AI knows everything. You can't. There's just too much information, and we keep making more. So the makers of those AI chatbots have to make a choice of what goes in and what goes out. And that means a couple of things. One is no two AIs know the same information, nor will they present what they know in the same way. This is a bias issue, and you need to keep that in mind when you use AI. So here's some tips that you can use. Fact check anything you get out of a chatbot. Use search engines to double check. You can ask the same question to different chatbots, and you'll get different answers from each of them. And you can use that to make an informed decision to move forward. AIs do what we call hallucinations. And this is a side effect of the training data and the AI model design. It's not something that's they're doing intentionally. I mean, if they were, we could figure out a way to stop it. But so far, it's a problem that we're working on. We're in the very early days of mainstream AI adoption, and change is occurring rapidly. But what this means is that this rapid change can sometimes destabilize and make the system a little buggy, you know? What could possibly go wrong? Anyway, scientists, engineers, and business people that are in the AI space, the owners of these AI systems, are working as hard as they can to better understand this issue and address it. Okay, here we go. Privacy. Chatbot conversations can be used to train future models. This is important. As you interact with these things, you want to minimize personally identifiable information when using AI. Understand and read the corporate terms and conditions of each of these AI chatbots to make sure you know how your data is being used, if it's being used, and why. You also have the right as a consumer of these systems to opt out of data sharing if you're concerned about how your data can be used. This is super, super important, especially in the area of healthcare and wellness. Okay, in the future, I know we're out of time. I'm just going to say that there is so much we can do. I'm going to leave the slide here for us to talk about later. But the idea here, I'm going to just take one point, which is we can use AI to restore balance, lokahi, to perpetuate our cultural knowledge, values, and principles, something that has been imbalanced in the past. And we all know this, right? So AI gives us an opportunity to correct that and have that live on in a system that is vibrant and valuable to help perpetuate that. We can talk about the other things. Education and advocacy are important. Key is let's focus on our youngest generations because they are not going to be the ones who know a life without AI. Let's equip them with the ability to take advantage of that and use it to their best advantage. Mahalo, everyone. And that's the end of my presentation.
Oh, mahalo nui, John. And if I could just ask you to speak to that first bullet point in that last slide, just a little more about the cultural AI that could be built. If I could just ask you just to kind of expand just a little bit. We got some time for you to expand on that just a little bit.
Okay, yeah, let me put that back up.
I think that's like such an important point.
How's that? Right there?
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, could you kind of repeat the question one last time so that I can?
Yeah. So I think, in our discussion, we the kind of big aha moment was like, we can actually we can create our own AI model that can be that repository.
Yes. And
like built by
who
us.
knows, that could actually be happening right now. I have come into this cold. I don't know anything about what's going on in the islands, very little, and I'm learning, but there could be initiatives happening right now under our noses. And this is something we should look into to find out who is, or if anyone is, doing something to train and fine tune AI specifically to capture this cultural knowledge. If it's not happening, then we should definitely get on it.
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, I wanted to just bring that point home and thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
Okay, so I'm gonna attempt to kind of bring us home here. And 1 second. Kalamai all the screen sharing that's happening here. So Hānai Ahu, right? What is our Ahu? What is your pua'a? And I want to kind of close. And first off, I want to mahalo the entire team. I want to mahalo everyone who's been part of this presentation. And I want to mahalo you, John, for this enlightening, engaging, and neuron charged conversation. Like seriously, like things have been wired for me. Like, and I think like there's been some ongoing wiring since we started this discussion in early July. And how fascinating, right? That the genesis of AI is due to the fact that the human brain exists. And I think that is like absolutely amazing. But I feel like we're at a crossroads, like perhaps one of many that urges each of us to define, create, and develop AI, as you were saying, John, for the flourishing, right, of human-centered endeavors, which is that pull quote that I brought in earlier. But you know, on a deeper level, Hānai Ahu, the title of our webinar series, gifted by our lab member and cultural advisor, Kawila Keli'i Kanaka Ole o Haililani, eloquently defined this series as a space for understanding self in Hawaii, that Hānai Ahu is about finding purpose, healing, and nourishing of others. And so I would like to share with you a personal story about how my childhood experience growing up in a household with substance misuse and how this eventually connects to my interest in technology. My father was a heavy drinker, like on a daily basis, which exposed me to adult issues at an early age. And because of this, I was forced into becoming an active problem solver, because I sought to find resiliency and harmony, like as a child. But what's so special about having my brother here today and sharing his take on empowering AANHPI healthcare is we both have a shared common denominator, and that's our father. Our origin stories and narratives have undoubtedly been shaped by our father's substance misuse. And from that grew our shared desire to solve problems. And that's what we're talking about today. We're 15 years apart in age. We didn't grow up in the same household. So for John and I, Hānai Ahu has been this X factor that reconnected and reset our relationship after having very little contact over the last 8 years. So we have reconnected because of Hānai Ahu. And we've been discovering, defining, and building that Ahu to better understand our pua'a. And so empowerment through AI, as we leave today's webinar, right? For me, it pushes me to focus on our humanity even more, and perhaps the answers that we seek in how to utilize AI as a tool has its own foundations in preparing our future generation for the AI world, and its potential good, potential in both good and bad. I think it ignites a new interest in the intricacies and fragileness of our relationships to each other, to the aina, to our spirituality, and to our kupuna that were mentioned in the Ahupuaʻa model that was shared earlier. And so I feel like there's an ongoing dialogue that's going to be happening forever now between the technology and humans and ourselves. But that's all to find that resiliency and harmony as we continue to move on. So I just want to honor and mahalo the opportunity and the gift that Hānai Ahu has given my brother and I, but also like to many others who have been part of this series.
Thank you so much, Marion. Okay, and so with that, we are going to zoom through closing protocol pretty quickly. I'm going to share my screen, and in the chat, Viana will be sharing a link to our poll ad. Marion, do you mind if I share screen? Awesome. Okay, so we're going to start our poll, Ev, and basically I have, well, you guys have the link in the chat. And so if you go to the link in the chat and enter one word, then you guys will be able to see all of the words populate onto this screen. And once that starts happening, it will be a very pretty, gorgeous word cloud that we'll all be able to see on the screen together. Brains, yes. Not in the zombie way, in the smart techie way. Oh my gosh, you flatter us. Innovation, that's a good one. Opportunity, ooh, that's another good one. Exciting, ooh, fabulous. These are very fun words. If anyone else wants to contribute, that would be so cool. Hot neurons, oh my gosh. Reconnection, oh, that's so sweet. Neurons and hot neurons. Nice, I love those. Ooh, reconnection, she's getting big. Ooh, wow, she's getting bigger. Oh my goodness. Well, that was wonderful. Thank you all so much for participating in that. I'm going to share my screen on the slides this time, and then we will keep it going. So we just did this slide. Next, onto the database slide. So basically,
Yeah, and I should.
Oh, yeah. Go for it, Kayla. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. But we do have a database, and that's with all the resources we use today. So if you just click on that link, I'm not sure if we have time to do a quick demo, but you can check it out if you want. But it's super cool. You can search by tags, and just, yeah, basically refine the information that you want to see.
Super cool. These are the resources that we used in our slides. We'll also be sending out this slide along with all of the other slides that we used in the presentation today, both in our slide deck and in John's. So you guys will be able to see all of the information and all of the sources that we used, and also the music in case you guys wanted some nice background music. We also have other webinar series that we've done, our Ulu State Disaster Response series and the Native Hawaiian Cultural Intervention Training series featuring the Hānai Ahu framework developed by Ku'ulei are both available on our YouTube, our website, and Hawaii Train. I believe links to that should be in the chat. Yep, there you go. And next, our evaluation forms. We have 2 forms for you guys. We have one Qualtrics from the Mapuna Lab, and we have one from Papaʻolakahi and the Ohana Center of Excellence. And now, I know that's a lot of forms, guys, but please, please, please fill them out. It would mean so much to us because a lot of our funding is dependent upon the results that we get to show to the people who gave us the money to be able to do this in the first place. And so that is all dependent upon you guys and how you engage and respond with these surveys and share that, oh, this was really cool. I didn't know this information. And even if you have ideas where we can improve, we're always learning, we're always trying to get better. And your feedback really, really helps us with that. And so if you guys would like to join the Mapuna email newsletter, you can either scan the QR code on the screen with your handy dandy cell phones right now, or we will send more information on this in the email, and we might have a link in the chat for this. Oh, look at that, we do. Viana's on top of it. Okay, and then the next in our series is going to be, the next training in our series is going to be next Wednesday, July 26th. And so I would like to invite Kayla to come and talk about it a little bit.
Mahalo, Jack. and mahalo for this amazing presentation. Marion, your reconnecting with John is very inspiring, and this has been a dynamic presentation on AI. I want to invite all of you to come next Wednesday, the 26th. We have the last of our curriculum series where we've been talking about the Makavalu Na'auwau curriculum, preventative curriculum for our youth. This will be we will be sharing about our next steps in development and launch. So look forward to seeing you all there. Mahalo.
Thank you so much, Kaya.
Yeah. Kawai mapuna kapu kaha ha inu ha'aola ha'a kapu ha'anoa e na kupu o na kupuna e malama kamapuna I ola loa I mauli ola